Hi, I'm Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest, and I'm here today with Senator Brent Jackson, who represents Sampson County, Duplin County, and part of Johnston County as well in his second term in the Senate, but by no means a newbie to the Senate, and certainly heading up a lot of things having to do with agriculture and base budget and appropriations and economic development. You, Senator, have really gotten your hands full over the past few years here in the Senate, and we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Lieutenant Governor. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, what it was like, what your childhood was like, what your family was like growing up, maybe some of the things that you've seen change through the years here in North Carolina. So if you could tell your viewers a little bit about what it was like growing up.
Well, growing up for me was very different, I guess you could say. My dad was a barber by profession. My mother was secretary to the AG at Fort Bragg for a number of years until she retired there. But I grew up where I live right now. I've been there all my life other than 2 years when my wife and I got married. We moved away to my dad's farm, which was about 2 miles from my current location. And we lived there a couple of years in a mobile home until we moved back in to what is currently our office, which was my grandmother's home, which is right down the street, less than a quarter of a mile.
I had the opportunity to come down and visit a portion of your farm and was fascinated by the operation. You had your business manager there as well, kind of talking about what has changed through the years, the kind of regulatory environment, the amount of money that you have to spend, that a farmer has to spend every year to meet the regulatory environment, and especially with what you do with fruits and vegetables. I was kind of the believer that you went out and picked a melon, you threw it on the truck, and you took it to the grocery store, and that was the end of the story. But that's not the way it actually works right now. So walk us through the process, if you would. What does it take to get a melon to market in North Carolina?
Starting around 2005 is when all the changes started really coming down on food safety, especially with cantaloupes.
And tracking them and the technology.
That's exactly right.
A high-tech business now.
It is a high-tech business now, and especially being cantaloupes is considered one of the dirty dozen of the produce industry. We have to do a lot of precautions. I mean, our workers have to be trained in not only personal hygiene, but also in how to handle the crop. The crops have to be washed and sanitized now beforehand. We have to actually keep track of that particular cantaloupe or watermelon and where it came from, which field, which farm, and it is tracked all the way. Basically, we use the joke, from seed to sewer.
Very good. And so just quickly as we wrap up here, I wanted to talk a little bit about agriculture in general. What are the big things that are going on in agriculture right now in North Carolina? What do you want your folks back home to know? What you're working on? What are the challenges that we face? What are the good things that are happening?
Well, let me tell you the best thing I think that has ever happened to eastern North Carolina when it comes to agriculture, and that's the livestock industry. Because without the livestock industry coming in the early 80s and 90s, there would be tumbleweeds rolling in the streets in a lot of these small towns. And livestock has been a lifesaver to these small areas. And I see that continuing to be a benefit for us as the population grows. More folks are going to have to be fed. And what better way to do it than through the crops and the livestock that we're producing in eastern North Carolina.
Well, you have indeed, and I always listen to your voice when you speak from the floor, and I know everybody else does. And as I mentioned at the start, from the very beginning, your voice has been a trusted voice to the agricultural community down east. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for your involvement in politics. I know it's a big sacrifice. The family farm continues to have to run while you're here in Raleigh, so you make sacrifices to do that. But I want to say thank you personally for making that sacrifice, not just for the people down east, but for the whole state of North Carolina. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I appreciate it. And I'd have to say this, without my sons there running the operation, I wouldn't be able to be you. So thank you.
Thank you.